Yo, what is going on, guys? Achilles here, and I know. It's been like 2.5, 3 weeks since I've uploaded a video. This has probably been like the most craziest, hectic week of or last couple weeks of my entire college career here. Even though I've only been here for about 2 semesters now, but yeah. So first off, I just wanted to thank you guys so much for 2K subs. I literally just saw that this morning, right when I thought about I had enough time to put together a video. And I hope you guys enjoy this one. I know it isn't like super special like when I did the 1,000 subscriber video, but I just wanted to thank you guys so much for 2K subs. As I've said numerous amounts of times, none of this would ever be possible without any of you guys, backing me, leaving positive and negative comments. Feedback is always appreciated, and I just think it's hilarious how much flack I get for the FE 4005 video when people think I'm 100% serious when I'm talking about how when I'm jokingly talking about how bad the tank is. I still get a lot of like, "Oh, you're a fucking retard," like comments like that, and I just think it's absolutely hilarious. But yeah, so what we're gonna do today is the highly requested T110E4 review for you guys. I find that this tank is probably one of the best tier 10s in the game at the moment, at least until they patch the alpha damage on this thing, because the T110E4 is just absolutely, it's a fucking beast. It's got a lot of good things going for it. It's got probably one of the most lethal guns in the game. It fucking shreds. It is so ridiculous. And then it's got a oscillating turret, or not an oscillating turret, just a turret that rotates, which I'll talk about in a second here. But yeah, so it gets a turret the E3 doesn't, which reduces your armor potential with this thing. But honestly, you're not really playing this thing for its armor values anyway. If you were playing for armor values, you'd be playing the E3. But the flexibility of the turret really does add that extra little oomph to it. So yeah, so let's get right into it, guys. So the T110E4 has 2,000 hit points, as you can see there on the right, and yeah, this is a pretty healthy amount for tier 10. The only tier 10 tank destroyers that have more than this are the Waffenträger E100, the Jägeru, and the E3 with 2,050, and then the Waffle and the Jägeru both have 2,200. So this is sitting at 2,000. So this is it's a pretty decent amount of health to throw around. As you can see, like the 113 only has like 2,300. So that's an extra little hit you can take. But the E4 is a beast. You're really gonna want to be playing the Peekaboom game with this thing. So yeah, so this tank gets 6 degrees of gun depression, I want to say. Where's the little thing? Yeah, 6 degrees of gun depression. So that's not amazing, but it's not bad. It's definitely not as good as the E3 with 8 degrees that it gets. But just the fact that you can turn the turret 90 degrees to the left and 90 degrees to the right really does help. You cannot turn it all the way around like you can on the T30, which is unfortunate. But your traverse speed and your turret speed, unless you're tracked, you're not really ever gonna have to worry about getting circled unless you've got like some super quick light tank or like a leopard or a bat chat or something getting behind you. Because honestly, in that kind of situation, you're fucked anyways. Because if you can combat that, that would just be a balancing issue. So yeah, let's hop right into the modules here, guys. So we are packing a 875 horsepower engine, which is not bad, but I found that it's a decently powered engine. You're not really going to be going very slow. As you can see, the top speed here is at 35 kilometers per hour, which is actually really good compared to the E3 at 25. I think it is 20 or 25, something like that. So you do actually have the leg up in speed over the E3 if you were wondering about that. So 875 horsepower, not bad. You will be going up hills pretty slow though, which is kind of unfortunate, but you can't really do much about that. We'll do the gun last, and then we have a 26 degree traverse speed, which is not awful, but it's not amazing. It's pretty much just a tier 10 TD balancing factor to make sure that you can't out-turn or outmaneuver a medium tank, because that'd be pretty fucking ridiculous if you could do that in the first place. So then you got the turret. I completely forgot to talk about armor, which I'll do after this. So yeah, the turret armor, 203 on the front, 152 on the side, 152 on the rear, and then an 18 degree traverse speed, which is pretty bad, but it's the same speed as the T30. So if you play the T30, you should be used to that. And then you do get a 400 meter view range. So before we get into the gun, I'll talk about the armor, because I have no idea how I just completely forgot to talk about the armor. So yeah, you got 254 millimeters on the front, which is pretty deceiving. I'll talk about in a second. And then you've got 76 millimeters on the side and 38 on the rear. And then we just talked about the turret. So the 254, just like that on the, I don't remember what tank it was that I did, but the little beak, you can see that there is the where the upper hull and the lower hull connect, where that little seam is. That 254 is floating around that little seam right there. Everywhere else, right where the headlights are, it's only about 152, I want to say. Let me check on this model here. Yeah, so that beak is around 254. Actually, no, I'm looking at it now. It says 260. I guess this might be the updated PC version HQ model that I'm looking at on tanks.gg. If you guys have never used that website, you probably should. It's amazing. But pretty much the upper plate, if you're looking directly at the upper plate, like I am now, the only chance you have of penning it at all is if you're shooting a gold round with a TD. I'm looking at numbers upwards of 400 to around 290. So the upper plate is definitely not a place you want to shoot on this tank. You really aren't going to have much chances to penetrate that. As you can see, it's really well sloped there. So yeah, so your bread and butter is definitely going to be this lower plate, which is only 120 millimeters thick, and you're only getting about 178 effective on the middle parts and the corners. It's extremely easy to penetrate if you hit it. Now, I will talk about in the replays. I think there might be one instance where I do it. It's a tactic you can do to prevent yourself from getting penned in the lower plate. I find that it works quite well sometimes, so I will talk about that. But moving on to the rest of the tank, so you got 76 millimeters on the side, which is really good for side scraping. It's not like the M103 or the T57 where you can just shoot right through their side armor, because that really sucks. Now, the overmatch really is not that big of a deal with this tank, just because you can't overmatch the side of the armor. So yeah, that's a really good factor, or really good positive for this tank. Side scraping is something you're going to want to do in a lot, but it's also something you want to be careful of, because when you are side scraping, the side of the turret cheeks right here, right next to the gun mallet, are really weak. As I talked about, they are only 203 millimeters thick. And I'm looking at around, if you're looking directly at the tank, such as this, they're around 240 effective. So if you have a gun with like 250, 260 pen, you will be able to cut through that pretty easily. So be careful when you are side scraping, because these little corners of the turret are the first things that you expose. That I found that's one of the most annoying things about this tank, is when you are trying to brawl, and you get shot or penned before you can even get the shot off, just because this turret is so big. And then another weak spot you're going to want to look out for is the machine gun on here, or the machine gun on top here. The machine gun on the E4 is definitely not as strong as it is on the E3. Looking at some number values here, it's around 180 millimeters thick, but you will get some, like, towards the top of the machine gun, where you can see where the little gun comes out, and then you can see it's like sloped back. On the top part of the machine gun, it's around 240 millimeters effective. So sometimes you will get some really weird bounces if you do have a lower penetration gun, say like an E100, and you're shooting AP rounds. You will get really unlucky sometimes and just bounce off of it. It's, I don't know, just really weird armor zones. So yeah, but if you are going to shoot the machine gun, you are going to want to shoot the lower part of the machine gun, where you can see it's angled in, because the shot will ricochet off that. If it does ricochet, it'll just bounce right into the top of the turret and go in. So yeah, the armor on the E4 it's okay, but it's definitely not as reliable as it is on the E3. Now, there is also one more thing I wanted to talk about. You can see the immense size of the gun mallet on the E4. Now, this is something that's really deceptive. If you're looking just to the left and right of the gun mallet, so I'd say probably about where that little gunner's viewport is to the gun, and then on the opposite side where the little machine guns are, those zones in between there and the gun are only around 254 millimeters thick. So if you have a gun that has like 270 pen or something like that, or anything with any premium round, will go right through this. There actually is no armor behind this gun mallet if you do shoot between the gunner's viewport and those two little machine guns, just to make sure you don't hit the gun though. Now, if you do hit the outside, to the right or left of those little ports, you will bounce. It's around like 4 something effective. It's pretty crazy. So yeah, that's just like a last case, or just last stand kind of thing. You're in heat of the battle and you got to just get the kill quick, and you can't really rely on you got to stay alive, and you can't risk dying trying to aim if you are that big of a scumlord, because this tank really is not that hard to deal with, especially if you are face hugging. The only real problem if you are face hugging this thing is if you are actually shorter than the E4, because then you won't actually be able to see the turret hatch. And I found that the turret hatch is actually really annoying when you are trying to like crest hills and stuff, because they're almost always going to see it before they see the entirety of your tank. So sometimes you'll find yourself like fighting a ridge, and you will just take unnecessary damage because you do have this turret hatch, and you can't hide it. It's always going to be there when you're aiming at people. It's always going to be the easiest place that people pen you, and it's probably pretty much the only spot that you're really going to get killed in a hold down position, because it's so easy to hit. It's fucking huge. So that's enough about the armor. Let me talk about the gun now that I've completely thrown this out of whack. But yeah, so you get a 155mm anti-tank gun, T110E4. This is the same gun that's on the E3, but the E3 does get a slightly better rate of fire. I think it's like 3.4, 3.5, something like that. But you still do get the 3.08 rounds a minute, which is actually better than the E100 at 3 rounds a minute. So you do shoot a lot faster than, well, not a lot faster, but you just shoot slightly faster than the E100, which is nice. And you're going to see here, you see these penetration and damage rolls. Like, this gun is just absolutely fucking ridiculous. So you've got 295 base pen with AP, and then 375 with APCR. This tank does get APCR. And then you have 90mm penetration with HE and 1100 average damage. So yeah, the biggest thing that I think that they need to fix with the TDs is that 850 alpha on the 155mm guns. I just find that it's so absurd. On PC they fixed this. It's 750 alpha, and I have absolutely zero problem with any of these TDs now. But the fact that you can roll 1,000 with this gun is just absolutely beyond me. You can roll anywhere from like 630 to like 1,000. It's pretty fucking ridiculous. I just feel like they should tone it down just a little bit. The APCR rounds are pretty fucking ridiculous on this thing too, which I will talk about when we get to the second replay, because they come in handy. And then you can see here the 2.9 second aiming time, which is not the worst, but it's not the best. It actually is the same as the E100's 2.9 second aiming time. And then you do get 0.37 accuracy, which is not the best, but it definitely is better than like the Death Star's 0.4 or anything like that. And when I run the E4, I usually run like Vents, and I have Brothers in Arms on this crew, and then I do run Cola as well, because it's an American tank. Excuse me. And they don't really catch on fire that much unless you get shot in the ass. I'm sure I've said that plenty of times when I've reviewed American tanks, so you guys probably know that by now. But let's go over the equipment fit here. I actually do not have any equipment on my E4 at this moment. So what my usual setup with the E4 is, I'm going to run the large caliber tank on rammer, obviously, and then I'm going to run Vents, obviously, and then the third piece is really honestly up to you. I like playing this thing as a heavy tank, and I see it more as a heavy tank than a TD. So you could maybe slap on optics if you really wanted to. That's not a bad choice. Or the gun lane drive, that's not a bad choice either. Or if you just are so annoyed with getting ammo racked all the time, because this is an American tank and the ammo rack is in the left and right lower plate, and it's just so frustrating just getting ammo racked twice in this thing every game. It's actually like completely just it's a detriment to the game, or to your potential in the game if you do get ammo racked twice. Just because having a 30-second reload, I mean, while it's still not bad, well, it is bad, but for 850 alpha, it's not as bad as it could be. It's still just absolutely so fucking annoying when you have a 30-second reload with this thing. So yeah, if you do want to run that, the third piece of equipment is really honestly up to you. So if I had to choose, it'd either be the wet ammo rack, the gun lane drive, or optics. But the two essentials, I would definitely go with the gun rammer and Vents. So yeah, the third piece is really honestly up to you, whatever your preference is. So yeah, let's go into the supplies here, or consumables, whatever you want to call it. So you do actually get 27 rounds with this thing. As you can see, my ammo setup is, it's not anything too special. Got 14 AP, 10 APCR, and 3 high explosive rounds. I can only count on one hand the amount of times I've shot HE in this tank, only at like waffles and stuff like that. But you can see the damage rolls there on the gun, or on the shells themselves. You can see it goes from 638 to 1063. That's just absolutely ridiculous to me. That's just crazy. Like, oh man, when I roll 1,000 with this thing, I feel so dirty. It's unreal. But you can see the APCR rounds. They're not as expensive as I thought they would be. So if you are a shithead and you want to just shoot gold all the time, be my guest. You honestly don't have to aim at anything that you're going to shoot at, because it'll just go right through, because it's the 155 millimeter APCR round. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to talk about when we get to that replay that I was talking about how ridiculous this round is, and you will see it in action. But yeah, so then you can see the small repair kit, small repair kit, small first aid kit, and then the case of cola. Pretty standard there. So crew skill wise, you guys already know what I'm going to say for the top three. You got 6th Sense, repairs, and Brothers in Arms. And then I would definitely go with snapshot, and then I would probably go with clutch braking for the next one, just to alleviate the the potential of you getting circled. It helps out ever so slightly with you traversing the tank in general, just to make sure you don't get circled, because this thing really does suffer when people get brains, and they pull a squad together and try to take you out. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the garage review, guys. Oh wait, never mind. No, it's not. We still have to talk about the modules. One of them I already talked about. So the lower plate on the left and right corners is actually where the ammo rack is. Extremely annoying. Oh man, you're gonna hate it every single time you get shot there. It's so annoying. Yeah. So then the turret ring, probably about where you can see the top of the tracks there. Anywhere from the top of the tracks to about where it says, right below where it says Warlock, you will get your turret ring damage there. The gunner sits right behind this little glass little scope here, and then I think that's the loader on the left side of where I'm looking, and then your driver is obviously going to be just right in the middle, just kind of like down here. I've never really found my driver dying much, because when you get shot in the lower plate, it doesn't really do much to your driver. So yeah. The commander is right behind right where the cupola is. Your commander will die quite a bit in this thing if they just keep peppering the commander's hatch there. Your fuel tanks obviously in the back, your engine obviously in the back, and then I think there's more ammo in the back of the turret, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check here real quick. Yeah, there actually is more ammo back in the back of the turret. So yeah. There's not really much else to talk about. Hang on, let me see. Where are my modules? Yeah, that's about it. There's not really anything else too, like detrimental to this tank in terms of modules. I feel like the only one that really is that bad is the ammo rack, and that is unfortunately just right in your lower plate. So you will actually find yourself getting ammo racked a lot in this thing, and it's just kind of the American thing. It's just getting annoyed by getting ammo racked with this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the garage review, guys. Let's cut to some replays. Alright guys, so for the first replay I have for you is it's actually a replay on El Haluf, or El Haluf, however you say it. I find that this is a really good map for this tank, or just any sort of like brawling tank in general. Since they fixed it, I don't know if any of you guys who watch my channel remember the old El Haluf. It was probably the worst map in the game at one point. It was just absolutely fucking terrible. And then they reworked it, and it's actually playable now, and I actually enjoy playing this map. The northwestern part of this map is so much fun to brawl in. I still feel like they kind of neglected the south, despite having that like huge ass hole implemented. The people that sit in the base at like, what is that, like D3, or just sitting on the hills in their bases, it really does shut down that position in the south, whereas in the northwest you really can do whatever you want. But the E4, as you can see, we're not going very slow here, but it's not too quick. I really do find that the E4 is one of those tanks that I find it's flexible, but it's not it's not as flexible as you want it to be. You know, it's definitely not an AMX-50B, you know, or insert speedy maneuverable tank here. And then you just put a nice meaty shot into that waffle there. I can't actually see the damage rolls because of how small the window is. All I can see is just a small portion of the replay. Yeah, so the E4, it's not slow. As you can see, the turret does rotate 180 degrees to the left and right. You can see it on the little like bottom left like icon. I don't know what you would call that, like the heads-up display, I guess you could say, with like all your modules and stuff. You can see the line. But yeah, so this is definitely where the E4 wants to be, just in a brawling environment. And you know, you're able to do things like that with the E4 just because of how high the penetration is on the AP rounds. You know, you really do, like, this is just the traditional like perfect style of play with the E4. You're just pretty much just baiting their shots, waiting for them to shoot, and then you just take literally zero trade and just clean up kills. You know, you really do want to save your HP when you are in this tank, as what you're about to see happen would, I wouldn't still be alive if what you're about to see happened, but had I gotten shot by that IS-7. So, you know, the E4, I feel like it's one of the strongest tier 10s in the game at this point. It's just, the gun is just so fucking good. Like, it's absolutely fantastic. The alpha is spectacular. The penetration is just completely ridiculous. You know, the accuracy is not too bad. You know, it does kind of suck you can't like fit a vertical stabilizer on this thing to make it a little bit, or make the what am I looking for here? The dispersion a little bit better while you are like moving and turning the turret and such. But you know, it's just, you don't really need it. I feel like it's just kind of like an accessory. You know, this is one of those tanks that I feel you really don't have to play with equipment. There's not really any equipment that is essential to playing this tank. There's a lot of like variations, as I pointed out in the garage review, that you can mess around with this tank. And you're gonna see here in a second, I load up the super special APCR rounds, and I was gonna talk about it in the second replay, but here's the perfect chance to describe what the APCR rounds with the E4 can do for you. So pretty much 375 millimeters of penetration with APCR. Yeah, you can just cut through that just like butter. And the funny thing is if you go in and do any armor inspector or anything like that, and you pick the gun that's going to be shooting to be the E4 or the E3's gun, shooting APCR rounds, if you are in like a mouse or an E100 or like the Jaeger, you know how I've always, or just the general rule of thumb is that like you're supposed to angle your turret and stuff like that. Pretty much when you're doing anything, like if you're trying to angle it and you have the perfect angle, you literally can't do anything about it. The APCR rounds are just so powerful and they have so much penetration that they'll literally just go straight through your turret and you can't do anything about it. And I find that it actually is quite absurd and it's pretty game breaking, to be quite honest. I think you know, it's really just not fair that there's nothing you can do to combat it. You know, I like to think that in this game there's balance to pretty much everything. And then you could see there, that was just pretty much the knowledge of me knowing that I can auto penetrate his side because I can overmatch his side armor because I have such a high caliber gun. But yeah, I feel like it's not fair because this is one of those things that you can't really counter. You know, it's not like the Jaeger or the 268 or insert tier 10 TD that shoots heat ammo. You know, say that 215B, had I shot him with a heat round right there, it might not have gone through if I was shooting a heat round because it's a heat round. It can't go through spaced armor, unless of course there's no spaced armor behind, or no actual armor behind the spaced armor. But yeah, there's no real there's nothing you can do to counter it. And like even angling your turret, it does nothing. You know, you really just have to rely on luck at that point, aka RNG, which is everybody's best friend and worst friend at the same time. So pretty disappointing shot here, just hit the tracks and it just tracked me, just sitting there gonna steal the kill. At least I get the spot damage for it here in a second. But yeah, so you know, you saw that E4 aim time right there. You know, it's not bad, but it just kind of gets annoying. And you know, this is not one of those tanks that really excels at just, someone had just gotten spotted behind me and I just had to like spin around and shoot. I would not have probably hit him just because of how bad the dispersion is while you are turning the tank and the turret, and the fact that it is a tank destroyer and you can't fit a vertical stabilizer. I am actually really happy that you can't fit vertical stabilizers on tanks like this, because if you could put a vertical stabilizer in this tank would be hands down probably one of the best in the game. It's just this, like, I can't really describe it. You're just gonna see in this next replay that I have for you how lethal this gun is. It's just, if you haven't already noticed from the insane damage rolls that I've been getting, this tank is just a fucking beast. I feel like this tank line kind of does discourage people, as I talked about in the T30 review. Like the Hellcat's really good, but then like the T25 or T25-2 and the T28 prototype kind of really do like turn people off from this line, and you really are missing out because this tank is just, it's so good. Sorry about that, but yeah, it's such an amazing tank, and it has so much potential if you do have the support that you need. Now I feel like that's kind of the case with any sort of tank of this nature, especially like E100s, Jaegeroos. Just insert tank with long reload here. You always want to have support with you. You always have to have someone having your back. You can't just go out on a limb and expect to get the kill. Especially with a gun like this that has such high damage rolls, it's such a high caliber gun, so it has a high fluctuation in damage rolls. You can't really rely on securing the kill sometimes. I mean, of course, there's going to be occasions where you do know you're going to secure the kill, but say there's like an E100 on like, let's say like 920 health. You might not be able to get that kill just because that's a pretty fucking high damage roll for an 850 average. I mean, it's not really that high of a damage roll, but it's still kind of high. But this game right here, this is probably, I think, the best game I've had in this tank, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, no, it's not. I've had a 10k game in this thing, but I did not actually have my Elgato plugged in at the time. This was way back, probably like 3 months ago, when I was grinding for when I was grinding for 3 marks on this tank, which by the way was really easy to do. If you are trying to 3 mark a tank, tanks like this with high alpha and just absurd penetration and just a really solid gun in general, you pen 4 or 5 shots and you're already in the money for the 3 mark zone. So it's pretty easy. You really just do want to stay alive. Now, what I did want to talk about here, you'll see the spot that I've taken here. You're going to notice that when I do like poke back and cover, the cupola on top is actually exposed, and that was what I was talking about in the garage there. There's going to be a lot of situations where they're going to be able to see you and shoot you, and you can't, well, you can see them, but you can't shoot them, just because of that cupola, and it is actually extremely frustrating, just from a standpoint of, there's not much you can do about it. I feel like it's kind of another one of those balancing factors for this tank, unlike on the E3, where the top of the E3 hatch is just absolutely ridiculous. It's just, I don't even know the exact value of how thick it is. I think it's like 320, 330, something crazy like that. So yeah, it's just, there's no hope of going through that. But I feel like with increasing the speed and giving this tank a turret, that was probably one of the best decisions they made in terms of trying to balance this tank. And then, you just see here the IS-4 side armor there, too much for the 275 or 295 pen there. I think that was honestly just shit RNG because it looked like it popped up and hit like the collar of his front plate. And you see here, I'm just aiming for the top of his turret and nail it. That really is the biggest downfall of the IS-4. Is the top of the turret hatch there, and it really does affect your style of play when you are playing the IS-4. Like say you're on a flat ground and there's people above you, the top of your turret is an even bigger target, and I just feel like it just kind of just takes away from that tank's potential. because it's a lot like the E4. There's nothing you can do to hide your weak spot on top of your tank. You just kind of have to take it in and just adapt. There's not really much you can do. And here I'm just kind of playing like the good old trying to aim for weak spots game here, but it's not working. So I'm just gonna load gold and be a lazy fuck, just because I want to get some damage. I don't remember if this was a game where I was going for 3 marks. I think it was, maybe. I don't know for sure. And then you just see I just get some ridiculous shot like that, just stupid RNG. But that's another thing I wanted to talk about with the E4 is just the power of this gun in terms of the caliber. You saw the overmatch on the top of the IS-4 turret there. Now that's something you can do with pretty much any sort of tank that has anything over a 91mm gun. That's pretty easy to do. But something like you saw at the beginning of the game when I shot that M103 on the top of the turret, despite me hitting his hatch, the top of his turret is only 50mm thick, so I actually was able to auto-pen the top of his turret regardless. That actually is something that you can do with the E100 as well, and it's something that I used to do all the time when I was shooting at stock M103s. And I think the M103 with the upgraded turret as well still has the same issue. So yeah, that's a big issue with those kind of tanks, and that really does just add on to the flexibility of the E4. You can just if you know those zones, man, you just go for it, and you're pretty much going to penetrate every single time. You know, like the 215B side armor, M103 side armor, top of the M103 turret, T57 turret armor. You know, it's brutal. And you can just see this crazy alpha damage, man. It's just this tank really does mop up. And I feel like I didn't really do a good enough job of preserving my HP this game. Just kind of let that Tiger 2 tee off on me, which kind of sucked, but you know, it was just bad decision making. And then, you know, just trying to clean it up, man. Just 2 shots, 2 kills. It's just this gun is a beast. I don't know how many times I can say it, but this gun is just absolutely fucking amazing. It's accurate. I believe with my setup with Vents, Brothers in Arms, and Cola, I can get the accuracy down to like 0.34, 0.35, something like that, I want to say. So it's pretty absurd. And that helps for shooting at long distances, which you will be doing on some maps, because there's going to be maps like Malinovka or, you know, like Prokhorovka, where it's just going to be pretty much a giant camp fest, and you're going to have to get those guys that are sitting on like the 1-2 line, or those guys that are just chilling on the hill in the back of the north spawn, or those guys that are just you know, just on the hill. You know, just the accuracy is not bad on this tank, but it definitely could be better. But I feel like if it was better, this tank would be pretty OP. So yeah. Now you can see here the traverse speed is actually not that bad. Luckily for me, he was shooting, or he did have the small gun. He probably would have killed me there with the 390 Alpha 105 that he had, or that he could have had. But he did actually have the, I think that was the long 88. So that sucks for him. But yeah, so the E4 in a nutshell, I feel like this is one of the most powerful tier 10s in the game at the moment. I know I've said that like 2 or 3 times now, but it's just the meta around this tank is just absolutely amazing. You know, it still has that 850 Alpha, which is just fucking brutal, and it's pretty quick. It can take a beating, and it can brawl with the best. That's, I feel, is the biggest factor in why this thing is so competitive in Clan Wars on console. Even though we still don't even have like a formal Clan Wars, it's just all community based. You know, back when I used to play, like, I don't even know, like last summer, just playing like every single day, just trying to get better. The E4 slowly became a norm for like maps like Ensk, maps like Himmelsdorf, oddly enough, and you know, just any map where there's going to be like some close encounters and a big brawl. The E4 is definitely something that you want on your side, especially if you are, you know, being escorted by some E100s. There is a tactic that you can do. You can actually side scrape the E100 off of a building, and then the E4 can shoot over the E100's back. It is a very, very, very good tactic if you are interested in doing something like that. We used to do it all the time. And honestly, I don't really think the E4 is balanced at this point. The gun is just, it's not even the gun, it's the alpha. The alpha is just too damn good. It's so fucking good. Just the sheer fact that you can roll 1,000 really does bother me. You know, it's nowhere near like the Death Star ridiculousness, but like it's still just kind of stupid to see you roll 1,000, you know, every once in a while. I'm just like, come on, man. Like, why is this possible? But other than that, the E4 is probably one of the most solid tier 10 TDs in this game. Excuse me. But overall, do I think this tank is Clan Wars viable? Absolutely. Do I think this tank is fun to play? Absolutely. Do I think this tank is severely undervalued and underplayed, and people just don't know how to play it? Absolutely. This is probably the best tier. This is probably the best heavy tank of the tier 10 TDs, I would say, just because it's just absolutely fantastic. And you're going to see here, absolutely amazing game here on Himmelsdorf. 9.7 thousand damage. Just absolutely went off. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this tank review, guys. Let me know what you guys want to see next. I really hope you guys enjoy this. I hope I gave you guys as much info as I could. But yeah, if you guys are interested in going for the E4, go for it. I highly recommend it. But that is pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for 2,000 subscribers. This has been Achilles, and I will catch you guys later.